Session 12, Building Social Support. This session focuses on the importance of developing trust in order to maintain relationships and build social support. Sometimes we take our family and friends for granted, but they're often the first people to support us when we're facing problems. After the elder's teaching, you'll start things off by leading a trust walk, an activity that explores the difference between trust building and trust breaking behaviors. Since broken trust can be hard to rebuild, you'll be exploring ways to maintain trusting relationships. Next, an activity that links people with yarn will help participants see how everyone is connected, since things that happen to one person can have both direct and indirect effects on others. At the end of the session, you'll circulate a list of family services available in the community. Families wrap up by beginning to think about an activity related to their tree of life. The session starts as usual by getting together and welcoming participants to today's activities. You can briefly introduce the theme of today's session, building social support, and the idea that everything is connected. Invite the elder to conduct whatever ceremony, protocol, or acknowledgements are appropriate for the session. You can budget about 5 minutes for this portion of the program. After the opening is mealtime. If you decide that it's appropriate, you can ask the elder to bless or give thanks for the food. Invite families to serve themselves and give priority and assistance to elders and anyone who might need extra help. Make sure that everyone lends a hand to clean up. In total, the meal should take about 30 minutes. Once you've finished eating and cleaned up, you'll be collecting feedback on the last session from participants and introducing today's main activities in a bit more detail. This should take about 10 minutes and involves asking the group the following questions. Last week, we talked about valuing differences and preventing discrimination. What are some of the takeaway messages from last session? Review the take-home assignment from the previous week. Would anyone like to share some of their examples of actions that make people trustworthy, or, in other words, that help people earn our trust? After collecting feedback, you'll be briefly explaining today's activities and giving families a rundown on the reasoning behind what we're doing. Refer back to the manual for a suggested script to help introduce the topic of building trust and strengthening relationships. Now you'll be inviting the elder to speak. We suggest that they tell a story or offer advice that touches on the themes of building trust and relationships and supporting one another. Once the elder finishes speaking, participants can ask questions and discuss. You can take a look at the manual for a couple of suggested discussion prompts. Please set aside about 20 minutes for the elder's talk and the conversation that follows. After you finish discussing the elder's story, you'll be leading participants through the first activity of the night, the trust walk. For this activity, which is explained in detail in your manual, you'll line participants up in the middle of the room and tell them a series of scenarios. After each scenario, they'll either take steps forward or backwards, depending on if the act described in the scenario builds trust or breaks trust. After you go through all the scenarios, ask each participant to pull up a chair and form a circle. Ask the families to reflect on the scenarios and lead a discussion on what other actions could be considered trustworthy or untrustworthy, and how they can work towards avoiding those untrustworthy actions in their lives. Aim to set aside 15 minutes for the walk and 10 minutes for the discussion that follows. You'll be taking families through a yarn circle activity for the next 25 minutes. The point of the activity is to illustrate how everyone is connected. You'll start things off by arranging the participants in a circle, holding the end of the yarn and tossing it to someone else in the circle, creating a line between you and that person. Then you'll tell that person something you appreciate about them. After everyone has received the yarn and passed it on, make a point of showing the group that when you pull on one part of the web, the whole thing moves. Invite them to comment on what that might symbolize. See the manual for some suggested discussion prompts to inspire conversation about the meaning of this symbolic gesture. The next 30-minute activity is only held by communities leading 2.5-hour sessions. It involves presenting participants with a list of social support resources available in the community and broader region, and beginning the planning for the Tree of Life mural. If you don't have time to conduct this activity, please ensure that participants received handouts that provide them with access to all of these resources. See the manual for detailed instructions on this portion of the session. Next, you'll be taking families through a planning activity for their trees of life. They'll be sketching a small version of the full tree, which will come together in the next session in a bigger form as part of a mural. Families can use the pages in the youth booklet on the Tree of Life to think about which aspects of all the past tree activities they would like to include in the large-scale version of the tree. See the manual for tips about leading participants through this activity. Session 12 wraps up after the activities on community resources and the Tree of Life. We recommend that you thank participants for their presence and let them know that you're looking forward to seeing them at the following session. Next, explain the take-home activity, which asks participants to fill out a few questions that will help them through the next session, where they'll be creating personal mission statements. In order to assign this take-home activity, please make a copy of the activity called Knowing Myself, Hopes, Dreams, and Goals for each participant ahead of tonight's session. You can find the sheet at the end of session 12 in your facilitator manual. Finally, you can lead participants through a relaxation exercise or ask the elder to offer a closing word or observe any other meaningful practice. Please keep in mind that this video is only a summary of the session. Make sure to read the detailed description in the manual and to prepare the material as indicated. Thank you for your role in bringing the Listening to One Another program to families in your community.